Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Chi Omega Omega Chapter, our President, Brandy Garris, and Vice President Tasha Smith, I would like to welcome you to Money Talks. My name is Debbie Williams, and I am the chairman of Target 3, Building Your Economic Legacy. Today's program will educate you on how to avoid credit card pitfalls and will prepare you to seek financial aid for continued education. And so now I'd like to turn it over to the chairman of #CAP, Theresa Lanier. Theresa, take it away.
Good morning, Debbie, and good morning, everyone. We are so excited for today's program and so excited for all of you to be here. My name is Theresa Lanier, and I am the chairman of #CAP, which stands for College Admissions Process. We do have many of our scholars here that are participating in this program. So just one housekeeping announcement. If you are a #CAP scholar, please remember to put student in your name as it appears on this Zoom meeting so that we will know who is a student and who's not. And I'm excited for this workshop for our students and for everyone who is in attendance. But specifically to our students, here's a good opportunity for you to learn about how to build good credit habits while you're still in school, while you're still in high school and transitioning to college. And then we'll get into a little bit about what those financial aid awards mean. Those financial aid awards for our seniors should be rolling in right about now. So what does that mean for you? What options do you have? And what should you be doing at this point in your high school journey as you transition to college? So we look forward to the program, and we thank the program participants for being here today and those who are leading the discussion, and we hope that you get as much out of it as they have put into it. I'll turn it back over to the sponsors.
Good morning. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our upcoming speaker, Dr. Porschia Nkansa. She is a native of Chicago, Illinois. She is a graduate of DePaul University. She received her PhD from the University of Michigan. Dr. Porschia is also a certified public accountant with a long history of background in financial classes, teaching financial classes on various levels for undergrad and graduate level students. So I would like to turn it over to our upcoming speaker, Dr. Porschia Nkansa. Welcome.
Thank you, Melva, for that glowing introduction. Hi, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Porschia Nkansa, and forgive me. So I'm in California, and it's about 8 a.m. right now. So I had to get up really early on a Saturday. So I may have some hiccups, but just bear with me. I just want you to know that it's 8 a.m. in California right now. So I guess I can go on and get started with my presentation. I'll wait for okay. So I will be talking to you today about credit card management and pitfalls. I do have a couple of housekeeping announcements before I get started. So I will have a few knowledge check pauses during the presentation, and this is just for interaction. So I'll be asking you to recall some information that I have discussed. And then my second housekeeping item is that I want you to feel free to post any questions that you may have in the chat throughout the presentation, because I know something may pop into your mind and you might forget if you wait until the end. So I do want you to go ahead and post your questions in the chat, and then I can answer those questions at the end of the presentation during the Q&A portion. So now we can go ahead and get started with my presentation. So the first major topic is credit management and credit reporting agencies. So the first subtopic is types of credit. There are three major types of credit. There's revolving credit, installment credit, and open credit. So for revolving credit, examples are credit cards and lines of credit. And for this type of credit, you get a maximum credit limit, but you are responsible for making a monthly payment. And so if you have a balance at the end of each month, and you'll pay, there's a minimum amount that you need to pay each month. And then if you have an outstanding balance, you will be charged interest. So an example of this would be at the moment right now, I have a Nordstrom credit card. The next type of credit is installment credit. Examples of installment credit are car loans, mortgages, and student loans. With this type of credit, you will borrow a certain amount of money and you are expected to pay it off in equal installments over a set time frame, so over a set term. And the term could be months or years, depending on the loan type. So right now, for me, an example of a type of installment credit that I have is my car note. So it lasts for 5 years. So I'm expected to pay off my car note within 5 years, and I make equal installments each month. I pay a certain amount each month. The last type of credit is called open credit, and it's a less common form of credit. Examples of this type of credit are charge cards and utility accounts. So this type of credit is less common in that you're expected to pay the balance in full at the end of each month. So a charge card is different than a credit card in that with a credit card, you don't have to pay the full balance off at the end of each month. You can make the minimum payment or you can pay a little bit more than the minimum. But for charge cards, you have to pay the entire balance in full at the end of each month. And I can honestly say that I don't have any exposure to this type of credit myself. So this gets us to our first knowledge check question. And for the knowledge check questions, I want you to post your answers in the chat. So the first question is, what is one example of installment credit? And I'll give you about a minute to post your answers in the chat. So what is one example of installment credit? And so I see them coming in. I saw car note loans. I saw mortgage, loans, personal loans, student loans. Yes, so those are examples of installment credit. Thank you for your participation. And then rent, not so much, but we could talk about that later. So the examples are car loans, mortgages, and student loans. So car loans, mortgages, and student loans. Those are the examples. So now I'll get into talking about the credit reporting agencies. There are 3 major credit reporting agencies in the United States. There is Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. What the agencies do is that they offer services where you can request your credit report, and then you can also monitor your credit. And I've included the website information here on the PDF document. You can go to their websites and you can see the services that they provide. Another important service that they provide is that you can dispute any information that is wrong on your credit report. So if you request your credit report from one of these agencies, and you notice, or bureaus, and you notice something on the report that you didn't open or you didn't initiate, then you can work with the credit reporting bureau to dispute the incorrect information on your credit report. And I'll talk a little bit more about this disputes later on in the presentation. So I'm ready to move on to the next. So our next main topic is credit scores, credit score factors, and then good credit habits. So this is 2 diagrams of your credit score ranges. So you have your credit reporting agencies, and what your credit reporting agencies do is they give you access to your credit reports. And on your credit reports will be your credit score. And so these diagrams show you what your credit score amounts could be. And so for there are 2 credit reporting models. So there's a FICO score and then there's a Vantage score. So that's why you see the 2 different diagrams. And these are the 2 most common credit reporting models that are used. So for the first one, it's based on FICO scores. And so we can see that for the full diagram, the range of your credit score is 300 to 850. So we can see that according to FICO, a very poor credit score would be 300 to 579. A fair credit score would be 580 to 669. A good credit score is 670 to 739. A very good credit score is 740 to 799. And then an exceptional credit score is 800 to 850. And then going down to the Vantage score model, the range is still 300 to 850, but there are different, I guess, cutoff points for very poor, poor, fair, good, and excellent. So we can see that with Vantage score, a very poor credit score is 300 to 499. A poor credit score is 500 to 600. Fair is 601 to 660. Good is 661 to 780, and then excellent is 781 to 850. So it appears that if we compare both, if we compare FICO and Vantage, it appears that Vantage is the more lenient or less restrictive credit reporting model. So, but overall, the ranges for both of them are 300 is the highest, and then 800, or 300 is the lowest, 300 is the lowest, and then 850 is the highest. So the range is 300 to 850. And now I think we'll get into our next knowledge check question. And that is, what is the highest credit score amount? So what is the highest credit score amount? I want you to post it in the chat. And then excuse me for a second. I meant to put on my timer so that I could time myself to make sure I'm staying within my time. Okay, so listen, everyone has gotten that one correct. So we know that 850 is the highest score that you can obtain. And so we know what we want to reach for, in terms of our credit score. So our next topic is factors that affect credit scores. And so again, we have a comparison between the Vantage score and the FICO score. And I'll give a brief summary of each one, and then I'm going to compare them across the two because there are some comparisons. So we have, for your Vantage score, the factors that affect your credit score, we can see are payment history, credit usage, credit age, total balance, recent credit. And then if we look at FICO, the factors are payment history, amount owed, type of credit, length of credit, and then new credit accumulation. So in looking at both of them, for Vantage score and FICO, we can see that the highest percentage factor is payment history. So payment history means, are you paying your bills on time? So what has been the history of you paying your bills on time? And if you aren't paying some bills on time, that will appear on your credit score. So payment history, we can see, is the most important factor based on the percentages for each scoring model. And then for Vantage score, the next important factor is credit usage. What credit usage is it's a ratio. So it's a ratio. So the ratio is outstanding credit balances divided by credit card limits. So the ratio is outstanding credit balances divided by credit card limits. And it's expressed in terms of a percentage. So let's say your outstanding credit balances on all of your credit accounts is $300. And then your maximum credit card limits for all of your credit card accounts is $1,000. So then you would have the 300 divided by the 1,000, and that would mean that your credit usage is 30%. So that's how credit usage is determined. It's the ratio of your total balances divided by your total credit card limits. And there is some guidance out there from credit advisors, and they recommend that this ratio is kept at 35% or less. And I also saw another article that says this ratio should be 30%. But this is a guideline. It's not like a hard rule. But that's what credit usage is. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the total amount that you have of debt divided by the total of debt that you can have. So that's what credit usage is. And then our next one for Vantage score is credit age. So this just means the amount of time that you've had your credit. So let's say I opened up my first credit account 5 years ago. So I opened up my first credit card 5 years ago. So that means that my credit age started five years ago. So I have 5 years of credit age. And then if I opened up more accounts since then that's fine. But if my oldest account was 5 years ago, then that's when my credit age started 5 years ago. And then comparing that to FICO, that would be the same as the length of your credit. So length of your credit and credit age are the same for these two. And then the next for VantageScore is total balance. So this would be the total balance of the debt that you have. And that relates to, for the FICO scoring model, that relates to the amount owed. And then for VantageScore, the last factor is recent credit. So how much of your credit is new, has been newly opened, newly established credit. And then if we go across to FICO to compare, that would be the same as new credit accumulation for FICO. And so going through the FICO scoring model, we can see that payment history is the most important. Amount owed is the second most important at 30%. Then for FICO, they considered the type of credit. So, when I first started talking about credit, we looked at the types of credit and we saw that there were 3 types of credit. So FICO factors in the different types of credit that you have. So revolving credit, installment credit, and open credit. That is what that would be considered for FICO type of credit. And then the next important factor for FICO is the length of credit. So that relates to how long have you had credit. And then the last factor is new credit accumulation. So how much of your credit is new, is recent, how much has recently been opened. So in summary, we can see the factors that affect your credit scores, and then I will relate these factors to getting into talking about good credit habits. So the good credit habits come from my own personal experience, and also when I was in college, I interned at TransUnion, one of the credit reporting bureaus. And one of the perks that they offered to their employees was that we can go to workshops to learn about credit and our credit scores and how to build our credit and how to dispute any credit discrepancies. So as a college student, while I was working at TransUnion, I would go to these workshops to help me learn about ways to build my credit and things to consider as I was starting out my credit journey. So that's where I get these good credit habits from. So in addition to them being connected to your factors, your credit score factors, it's also just based on my own personal experience. So the first good credit habit that you can start building is paying your bills on time. So if we go back to our credit score factors, we can see that the most important factor is payment history. So that's why paying your bills on time is a good credit habit to establish. The second good habit is keeping your credit card balances at 30 to 50% of the maximum limit. So this goes back to credit usage. When I talked about, the credit advisors recommend that you keep your credit usage at 35% or less. And then I see some articles that say 30%. So what this means is, and for myself, when I was going to the TransUnion workshops, they told us to keep our balances at 50% of the maximum limit. So that's why I have the range. So the 30% is from like the credit advisors, and then the 50% is what I obtained on my own from going to the TransUnion workshop. So what this means is that if you have, let's say I have a credit card and the maximum limit is $4,000. This would mean that if I'm, if I'm trying to minimize or reduce or decrease my credit usage for that credit card, then I will charge only up to $2,000 on that credit card. So my total maximum limit is $4,000. So in trying to establish good credit habits with my credit accounts, I am only going to charge $2,000 or less on that credit card. And so this is one thing that I try to keep in mind now too, as I'm older, is just making sure that I charge half of my total maximum limits. So I don't want to go over half of my maximum credit card limits. So that's the second good credit habit. The third one is to have a diversity of credit accounts. So this relates to, we can see the FICO scoring model. A factor is the type of credit. So you want to have a mixture of the different types of credit. So with revolving credit, you want to maybe have like 2 or 3 credit cards. And so you can have, I know for myself, I have, and I'll talk about this a little bit more at the end when I talk about my own personal journey, but you might want to have like, maybe a major credit card, which would be a MasterCard, a Visa, Discover, American Express. And then you also can have some store credit cards. And then if you want to open up a line of credit, that would be a way of having a different type of revolving credit. And then you have some installment credits. So closely related to you all and your age is that you'll probably have student loans soon. So that would be a type of installment credit that you have. You may have a car loan, I don't know, but car loans may come later when you get your first job. And then mortgages, of course, come later. And then for the open credit, I don't have a charge card myself, but if you wanted to open up one of those, if you really want to like practice paying off your balances in full each month, then that would be a good way for you to, if you open up a charge card, you have to pay the balance at the end of each month in full. So that would be a good practice that you can start for yourself. So have a diversity of credit accounts. So, have some revolving credit, some installment credit, and then consider open credit too, if you can. The next good credit habit would be reducing the amount of credit inquiries and short time frames. So what an inquiry is when an external party will run a check on your credit worthiness. And so they'll request your credit score from one of the credit reporting agencies. And this is them trying to figure out if you're worthy enough to extend credit to. So examples of people who might request your credit score, credit report will be landlords. So if you try to rent an apartment, they will run a credit check on you, and also your future employers. So when you apply for jobs, they'll run a credit check. And in addition to when you're trying to go to different places and open up credit accounts, if you go to different stores, you're trying to open up credit accounts. I remember when I was in high school, I would go to all the different cell phone companies and try to figure out who would give me the best deal. And so I would go to all of them at one time. But what you want to do is you need to reduce the amount of credit inquiries that you have in short time frames. So consumers can get dinged a little bit if they go to multiple places in a short time frame and they're trying to open up credit, because every time you go, this external party is hitting your credit. Just think of them as like they're hitting your credit score. And one of the articles that I have listed here, they talk about for FICO, the time span that they do for inquiries is 45 days. And then for a Vantage score, it's 14 days. So I would say you just want to minimize how many dings you have on your credit report or credit score in a month. So you don't want to be going to like 10 places in a month trying to open up credit accounts, because I noticed when I was doing this, if I would go to maybe a few places in a day or over the weekend, and then I would check my credit score, I noticed that it would go down a little bit. And then factors for your credit score, they'll tell you what factors contribute to your credit score. And so one of the factors that I would see is that it says that I had too many recent inquiries. So this is something that you want to keep in mind as you're establishing your credit. And then the last good credit habit is to check your credit report often. So this kind of goes in line with you monitoring. So you're monitoring your credit score, right? So you're monitoring your credit score and you're looking to see if it's going up. And then you're also, if it's going down, you're able to see the factors why it's going down so that you can change your behavior. So that's why it's a good habit to look at your credit report often so that you can track it. So you can see if it's going up. If it's going up, that's great. And you can keep up with your credit behavior. But then if it's going down, then you can try to assess or understand why your credit might be going down. And then you can work on changing the habits that are leading your credit to go down. Another reason why you want to request your credit reports often is so that you're checking to make sure that there aren't any discrepancies there. And so discrepancies are if someone has gone out and tried to open up something in your name that you didn't do. And if we scroll down, you can, I have this little paragraph here that talks about how you can go about disputing. So the link gives you access to this paragraph, and I'll read a little bit from. So it says, when a consumer disputes a credit file item, the Bureau must note within the file that the item is disputed and begin an investigation. The investigation must be completed within a reasonable amount of time of about 30 days. So if you're checking your credit report often, you're able to see if something pops up on it that you didn't apply for, and then you can go ahead and start the process of getting it removed, and that's called disputing it. And sometimes people do experience like identity theft, and so that's why it's a good habit to have is to check it often to make sure that you don't, so that nothing is there that shouldn't be there. And then if something is there that shouldn't be there, then you can go ahead and start working to get it removed. So this gets to our last knowledge check question. What is one good credit habit? What is one good credit habit? Reducing your inquiries, yes. Having diversity, yes. Paying bills on time, yes, yes. So it looks like you all are hitting all of the good credit habits, yes. So paying bills on time is the most important one. Oh yeah, keeping your credit usage under 30%. Yes, that's one too. Yes, utilization low. Yep, so you all hit all of them. So now I will talk about the potential credit pitfalls and then give you some advice. So the pitfalls really relate to, I've related the pitfalls in this table to how they will negatively affect your credit score. So the first pitfall, and these are just things that I've been talking to my friends about, I talked to my husband about, and just thinking about things that we wish we would have known when we were younger about our credit or just credit in general. And so the first pitfall is thinking that credit is free. So I know that when we're younger and, we're offered credit, we're like, yes, we have this money, this free money that we can go spend. We have this credit card that we're about to charge up. And so I want you all to think about how it's not really free money because you're charged interest. And so you're going to end up having to pay if you're not paying stuff off in full, then you're going to have to end up paying interest. And this interest, just think of interest as a cost to you. So an interest is a cost to you. It's an expense that you're having to pay that you can be using your money to do other things with. So that's why I want us to get out of, to not think that credit is free money, because it's not, because we'll have interest. And a way that thinking that credit is free money is that a negative effect on your credit score could be, you're thinking it's free money, so you're just going out and charging up everything and maximizing everything. And what that will do is it will affect your credit usage, which we've discussed is that we want to keep it low. So we want to keep our credit usage low. The next pitfall could be maxing out all of your credit cards. So I kind of talked about this using the first example. So maxing out all of your credit cards is not a good thing. As we've seen, it's good to keep your utilization low. So if you're maxing out all of your credit cards, this means that your utilization is going closer to 100%, which is not a good sign for your credit worthiness. And so the negative effect, the direct negative effect would be, as we saw the factors earlier. So this would contribute to you having higher amounts owed because you're charging up everything, so you owe more. And it also it affects your balances. So your total balance will be high. The amount that you owe will be high. The third pitfall is assuming that all debt is bad. And so in this, the thing that I want to come across is that credit can be a good tool to use, because sometimes, most of the time, you won't have the high amount of cash to drop on like a big purchase, right? So like a car. And so you need to build your credit history so that when it's time for you to apply for a car note or a mortgage, you have this established record of credit, which will help you in the long run. So I know and for myself, which was probably a good thing in college, I did not like student loan debt. So I was trying to minimize my student loan debt. And but one way that I did that, so I wouldn't take out more student loans, is that I applied for more scholarships. But I still had credit. I had other credit accounts. And I see Courtney has her hand raised, but Courtney, I'll call on you first when I get to my Q&A. I wrote you down to call on you first. So credit is a good tool to have, but I want us to, or debt. So debt is good to have, but we just need to be wise with our debt decisions. And we also want to go ahead and apply for credit accounts so that we can have an established credit history. When the time comes for us to apply for more credit later in our lives, then we'll have a little bit of history. And so our credit worthiness will increase. So that's one of the pitfalls. I don't want us to just assume that all debt is bad, because you can use debt to your advantage. You can use debt to your advantage. The last pitfall is going to multiple places during a short time frame to open credit accounts. So this is what I was talking about with my example about, going to multiple, if you go to phone companies, like multiple cell phone companies in a day, and you're trying to figure out who's going to give you the best deal, then that will affect your credit score. It'll reduce it. And also, even if you're going to, like, if you go to a shopping center, right, and you want to go on a shopping spree, and so you're going into all these stores and you're applying for these store credit cards, then that will negatively affect your credit score too in the short term. So the negative effects would be it increases your credit inquiries, which then will lower your credit score. So you want to be careful about trying to open up multiple accounts in a short time frame. And so now I think we can move on to my advice. So those are the pitfalls. And so now I'm offering you advice just based on my personal credit journey. So I will share with you all that I have a very high credit score. I have a credit score of 800. And so, going back to our credit reporting models, 800 is excellent and exceptional, right? And so I just have given you all some tips, the things that I've done along my credit journey to help you. And so hopefully this will help you have a high credit score as you get older. So the first thing I start in high school, then college, and then after college. So for high school, yes, I have an 800 credit score. I was really surprised myself too. It took me some time to get there, but I'm happy that I'm here now, and I feel like nobody can tell me anything now because I have a high credit score. So for high school, I started out, I had a part-time job. I worked at the library, and I don't really remember how much I made every 2 weeks, but it wasn't a lot, right? But I knew that I could afford paying my own cell phone bill, because at the time my cell phone bill was like $50. So I knew, or it was less than $50. So my cell phone bill was less than $50. I knew that this is something that I can pay on my own. And so that was the only form of credit that I had in high school, my cell phone bill. And then for college, I started opening up more different types of accounts. So I started opening up like a credit card. So I had like a main credit card. It was probably a Visa or a MasterCard. And then I started opening up store credit cards. So I had, my first one was Best Buy. So I had a Best Buy credit card, and then I had a Pep Boys credit card. And so, but again, you're only opening up accounts that you know that you will pay. You're only charging amounts that you know that you will be able to pay. So for my Best Buy credit card, I never went into Best Buy and bought like a big screen TV or anything, because I knew at the time I wouldn't be able to pay that off. I think I did buy a laptop when I was in college. Yeah, I did. I bought a laptop, but I knew that I would be able to pay off my laptop. So I want you to think about, how much money you actually have coming in, and what can you pay? What can you actually afford at that time to pay off? Another thing that I want you to consider when you're in college, and this is something that came to me later after college, but I want you, as you're considering opening up bank accounts and credit card accounts, look to see that the banks and the credit card companies, look to see if they provide you with your credit score as one of the perks of joining them. And so what I ended up doing after college was I started banking with a credit union because I found out that they had lower interest rates on car loans. I knew that I was going to buy a car eventually, right? And so I wanted to go ahead and establish myself with the credit union and open an account with them so that they would see that I was a member and then that they would be more likely to give me a car loan. So what the credit union does is one of their perks is that they give me my credit score every quarter. So that's an indirect way that I can monitor my credit score without actually having to request it. And so I know one of my credit cards, they also offer me my FICO score. So I just want you to, as you're opening up your credit accounts and your bank accounts, just see if they're providing you with your credit score as a perk, because this will be beneficial to you in the long term because you can indirectly monitor your credit score that way without actually having to go and request it. And I missed this earlier in the presentation, but it's fine. There is this Consumer Reporting Act that allows you to request a free annual report from each of the agencies. You can get your report from each of the agencies at one time each year. So each year you can get a free one. So that's just another thing that you can consider too as a way to check your credit score every year. And then the last thing, so after college, my tips are to develop a strategic plan to repay your student loans. So I know for myself, I went to a private university, but remember I told you all I didn't like student loan debt. So I did apply for a lot of scholarships to help pay my tuition. I ended up getting like $60,000 in scholarships, but I did end up having about $16,000 of student loan debt when I graduated. So what I did was when I graduated, I had an aggressive plan after I graduated when I started working. I had an aggressive plan to like attack and pay down my student loan debt. So I owed $16,000. So at the time when I first started working, I was making a lot of money. I was still staying at home. I didn't have many bills. I didn't have a car yet. So I decided I think I started paying like $1,000 a month on my my student loan debt, just so I can go ahead and get it out the way so that I can start move on with my life and start opening up different types of credit accounts. So I just want you to develop a very like aggressive or strategic plan to pay off your student loan debts so that can free up the rest of your money after you start working so you can do other things with your money. And also this is the time to consider opening up new types of credit accounts. So your car loans, if you want to get a car, later on a mortgage, and then personal lines of credit. So I can say personally for me, living in California, in LA, housing prices are really high, and it's going to take me a while to actually be able to afford a home. So what I do in the meantime is that I get personal lines of credit as a way to have a diversity of credit without actually having a mortgage. So there are different ways that you can habits, even though you can't choose to go away with. So it's saying my internet connection is unstable, so I hope I'm okay. But so the major two takeaways that I want you to go home with or consider. The first one is I want you to develop a future focused credit mindset. So credit is a good tool that you can use to expand your financial access. What I mean by this is that making wise credit decisions as a young adult will increase your financial opportunities later in life. So I know you might be thinking the stuff that you do now won't really have that big of an effect on you later, but it does, especially as far as like credit. So I want you to start making wise credit decisions and developing these good credit habits now. So later on in life, you will have access to more financial opportunities. And the second major takeaway is that I want you to establish good credit habits early because they will pay off in your financial future. So they will pay off for you in the long term. So one example that I can give, and this means that you'll have more credit options, so you'll be able to access more credit. So because my credit score is so high now, I'm not declined for anything. And I also have lower interest rates on stuff that I apply for. So on the loans that I apply for, so my car loan, my personal lines of credit, I have really low interest rates because I had started out with these good credit habits and I was able to, obtain a high credit score. And so now I just have more opportunities, financial opportunities available to me. And one thing that I'll leave you with is I have a friend who she has a low credit score. And so she wants to work in the banking industry, but she can't get a job in the banking industry because her credit score is low. And she's also looking for apartments right now, but because her credit score is lower, she has less options. So this is what I mean with the last bullet point, and just in general, is that if we start building wise credit habits and making those wise credit decisions now, they end up affecting us in the future. And if we make good credit decisions now, that will improve our financial access in the future and our financial opportunities, so that we're able to, when you make more money and you have a good credit score, then you're having to incur less as far as like interest charges. And so you can do more with your money. So that's the end of my presentation. I'll get some water. And then I think I promised to call on Courtney first, but let me get some water. But Courtney, you can go ahead with your question, I think. Is it okay for Courtney to go ahead?
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay. So my question was, how is assuming, I still don't really quite understand how assuming all debt is bad as a bad thing.
So this is just, I was talking with my husband about it. So I just think that, for me personally, right, the student loan debt, I was like, I do not want student loan debt. So one of the reasons why I actually didn't apply for a master's program was because I didn't want to incur any more debt for student loans. But I went ahead and I skipped a master's degree and I got a PhD. But in thinking that if you're getting student loan debt, right, the goal is to have a degree when you're done. And so that's a good thing, right? So I just want us to maybe just take the negative focus off of debt and just think about how we can use debt as leverage to help us to improve our financial outcomes in the future. I think that's what I'm trying to get across. It may not have come out that way because it's still like a percolating thought on my end, but I just want us to be able to say debt can be good.
Okay.
It's not all bad.
All righty. Okay.
Does that help?
Kind of. So like what you're saying is, is that student debt leads to eventually your success in professional life. So
right.
It's not bad.
So you use it as leverage, but what you don't want to be doing is, taking out way more student loans than you need at the time.
Okay.
Because that's what I did not do. And I think some people do that a lot. They'll take out way more than they need because they're trying to support themselves. But then it ends up hurting them after they graduate because now they're having to pay some people have like hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt, or like even thousands of dollars of student loan debt. And so it kind of hurts them because now as they're making money, they're having to allocate more of their money to paying off their student loan debt.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, so it's just like the leverage. And so I guess it kind of, so it's just using it as leverage and not overusing the debt.
Okay.
I'm
Right,
happy. I'm happy. I think you're good now, so I'm happy.
I am.
Okay. And I don't know the other questions that can someone help me with the questions in the chat?
I can read them out. I wrote some of them down.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so one person asks, any advice on how to pay off student loan debt early so I'm not paying off student loans my entire life?
Yeah, so that's what I had. I just had, I just was aggressive. I was really aggressive when I started working. But I know some people's situations are different. So my situation was I was still at home. I still lived with my mom, and I didn't have a car note or anything. I was in Chicago, right? So I was taking public transportation. So I just to you just want to attack it as aggressively as you can earlier on so that you can go ahead and move on with your life and like buying other things. But it's based on the income that you make when you graduate too. So that's a factor. And if I'm not answering the question, the person if you want to ask me, yeah. But I know it's a hard thing because it just sort of really depends on how much disposable income you have after you graduate. But that's why you don't want to be taking out too many loans when you're in school because it will end up harming you later after you graduate.
Dr. Portia, we have another question in the chat. So the question is I'm trying to have everything, I'm trying everything I can to get a score above 750, ideally 800. I have very little debt besides my mortgage and a car note. I pay everything on time or early. What are the 3 things I can do to increase my score, and how long should I expect to work in order to achieve a higher score?
Oh, I guess the where you can start is if you look at your credit report, and then you can see they give you the factors as to why your credit score is 750 right now. So I would say what you can do is try to address those factors to get you a boost. So it sort of depends on maybe you want to. I really can't answer that one because I'm not like a credit advisor, right? I just know from my experience. But I would say that's where you can start looking at the factors that they list for your current credit score and then trying to improve the factors. But for example, so for mine now, I think, mine is 800 and they say that I have like low real estate accounts. But as I told you all, mortgages or the housing prices in LA are really high. So I'm not able to even actually open up a mortgage account. So that's why I'm trying to go at it with just having personal lines of credit as a different form of credit that I'm establishing. So yeah, I think that's where you can start is what the factors are saying as to why your current credit score is 750. And then you may want to maybe you can reach out to like a credit counselor to ask them what steps you can take because that's not my area of expertise.
Another question that we do have, are there any tips for negotiating credit card interest terms?
Yeah, I think there's a way. I think you can call your creditor and ask. I don't have personal experience with this, but yes, you can reach out to your creditor and ask, and maybe you want to if you go through your factors, right, maybe you can list the factors as the reasons as to why you feel that you deserve a lower interest rate, and then you can negotiate it with them. But yeah, I don't have personal experience with that. I'm usually trying to, I would try to increase my credit limit, and then, they'll say yay or nay. But now I've noticed that they increase my limit on their own too. So yeah, I think, yeah, but I had a friend who said she did call her creditors to renegotiate her interest. So you could do that. Just I would say come with your receipts as to why you deserve a reduction and it should go okay. But I don't have personal experience with that.
So another question, what jobs check your credit score? Is it only those in the financial services industry?
No, I think it's any employer that you have. So anytime you apply for a job, they check.
So I have a question. If you don't have a credit score at all, do jobs look down on that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Courtney's my middle name, so that's why I remember Courtney. I don't know how I'm doing on time.
We do have one final question. Interest rate versus APR. What's the difference?
That's a good question. So yeah, interest rates would be like the annual interest rate, and then an APR is based on, it's a little bit more complicated. And so I'm not prepared to answer that question, but there is a difference. So your annual interest rate could be, let's say 24%, right? But then the APR, the way it's calculated in terms of like days or months, would mean that the interest rate is different than 24%. But I don't really know like the technicalities of it.
What's considered a low rate beyond the intro/special low rates of 0%? So what's considered a low interest rate beyond 0%?
Oh, I don't know that one either. I just know I think is bank rates. So there are websites that you can go to compare interest rates. And so that's a tool that you can use when you're trying to decide on open up certain accounts. I think it's bank rate or Nerd Wallet. You can go and you can compare interest rates so that you can choose a lower interest rate. But I know back in the day, interest rates used to be lower for like store credit cards, for example. So I've had some store credit cards, or like the oldest credit card that I have is an American Express, and my interest rate is like about 12%. But I know now in terms of like inflation and what's going on with the economy, I opened up a Macy's credit card about a year ago, and the interest rate on that is 24%. So yeah, and then talking to my husband about this too, he was just telling me like the interest rates are really high now, because I didn't really have any recent credit. But when I opened up that account, it was 24%. And like I told you all, my credit score is 800. So I think that's ridiculous that it's 24%, especially given that like this oldest credit card that I have, which is probably more than a decade, that one is like 12%. So I know interest rates are higher now because of the economy and because of inflation. So, but yeah, I can't say for sure because it's always like a moving target, and it depends on your credit score too, the type of interest rates that you get.
Can you talk about goodwill letters to bureaus and how they are helpful?
Oh, no, I don't. No, I don't even know. I don't know what a goodwill letter is. Sorry. Is that something that you can write to? Yeah, I don't know what it is. To end a credit card, you can close your credit account. You can close it, but I recommend that you keep them open, even if you don't use them, because remember, you're trying to have a long credit history. So like my oldest credit accounts, even though I don't use them, are written to credit to remove. Oh, okay. So the goodwill letter would be sort of like you trying to dispute something that shouldn't be there. Yeah. And what was I talking about before I saw? Oh, so your credit card, your history. So even my oldest credit cards that I don't use anymore, I don't close them myself because I know it's there to keep my credit history going. Sometimes they close on their own if you don't use them, but I just recommend you let them do that and you don't close them because you're trying to have like a long and extended credit history.
Thank you, Dr. Nkansa.
Thank you. Those questions got tough at the end. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Sorry if I couldn't
no
answer
worries.
everything.
No worries. Now, Ashley Thompson, are you ready?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining us this morning. I think this was an awesome presentation regarding credit, the different types of credit, how to use credit, the pros and cons of credit. And so I really do appreciate all of the great information that was shared with us this morning. I would like to transition over to our second guest speaker for today's event, Mrs. Theresa Smith. Mrs. Smith is an assistant director at a local university in Chicago. She works closely within the financial aid field and provides tips to students and families on how to plan for college and be financially healthy as they graduate. During the presentation earlier, we talked about credit, and as noted, student loans also affect the different credit and things that you can do with your money. So Theresa is awesome at working with students and families to plan for their financial futures. In addition, Mrs. Smith is also a founder of Why Not Stretch, a business that is catered to providing those counseling with their post-secondary finances. And so I would like to transition over to Mrs. Theresa Smith. Thank you for joining us this morning. Let's give her a nice virtual applause.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? Let's see. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So again, my name is Theresa Smith, and I am an assistant director of financial aid. And on top of that, I am a founder of my organization called Why Not Stretch. And I asked that question because I simply want to know why not stretch. Typically, when you stretch, it's to become comfortable, and you typically do it when you're uncomfortable. And so while working in this field of financial aid, I've noticed that when it comes to finances, a lot of students are uncomfortable with the process. So they either accept loans without really doing the research, accept and look away, or they don't ask questions. They don't ask for help. And so I would like to challenge you all to continue on this journey by stretching and to continue to ask a lot of questions. And each school that you're admitted into, ask the very same questions, because every school operates differently, especially when it comes to financial aid. So just make sure that you're asking those questions and you're not just getting information from your friends or your friends' friends or your family members, because everyone's financial aid operates a lot differently than the next. So just make sure that you are asking a lot of questions. And if you're like myself, who struggled with asking questions when I was your age, practice at home. Look in the mirror, write them down and practice, so that when you do go into an office and you meet someone like myself, you can enter with confidence, knowing that you're going to get the answer to your questions. So let's get right into it.
So, excuse me, Dr. Smith, if I can interrupt for just one moment. We do not see your presentation if you're trying to share your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I thought someone said they saw it. Okay. Okay. Can you all see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
No problem. And so now we'll delve into the different types of financial aid. Financial aid is any form of funding that applies towards your educational expenses. And so grants are need-based financial aid. And it's what we consider as a gift financial aid, meaning that you don't have to repay it. It's based upon need, so it's not based upon any academic measure, any GPA, test score, athletic ability, or artistic skill. And so to be eligible, or to see if you're eligible for any grants, you would complete the FAFSA. Some schools do require the CSS profile, but for the most part, the free application for federal student aid is what you would complete and what schools would use to determine if you qualify for any institutional, state, or federal grants. Next up, under gift aid, we do have scholarships. Now, scholarships will consider merit. They will consider all of the things that the grant will not. And I like to point out that scholarships come from various places, right? So you have your external scholarships where you may get some from your high school, your local library, your local legislators, McDonald's. That's what we consider external in my neck of the woods. Internal scholarships are what your school may offer you. So if you're admitted to a particular college, they may offer you a scholarship if you meet their criteria. Now, not all schools publicize that criteria, so no additional applications may not be required, but by simply applying and being admitted, you may be eligible for their scholarships. In addition to that, some schools do require some supplemental applications to qualify for their scholarships. So it's just making sure that you reach out to the schools that you're admitted into to make sure that you're turning everything that's required so that you're eligible, at least eligible to compete for those scholarships. So we have our external scholarships and we have our what we call internal scholarships that you may receive from your particular school. And then loans. We had a lot of questions about loans, of course. We have our what we call our federal loans, in which after you complete a FAFSA, your school will let you know what loans you're eligible for. Those may be the subsidized, unsubsidized, and Parent Plus loans. Those are what we consider federal loans because the federal or the Department of Education is the lender. The other type of loans is what we consider private loans. Now, those private loans come from banks, and we just went over credit, and the federal loans do not require, the federal student loans do not require a credit check. However, the private loans do. So you do have to complete some type of a credit application to become eligible for private student loans. But some students do participate in the private student loans so that they can use those loans to pay for their education. And then last but not least, federal work study. Work study is a program that if you obtain a job on campus that requires it, that job will use the funding from the federal government to pay you directly. So it's not directly applied towards your tuition, but because it is coming from the federal government and your eligibility is based upon your FAFSA results, it's still considered a form of financial aid. So let's look at the timeline. Right, so you apply for admission into your prospective university, then you apply for financial aid beginning October 1st. And then you're admitted into the school, congratulations. And then after that, it's showing me the money, right? That's where a lot of you are. You're waiting to see how much money you're going to receive to attend the school. So the entire process is backwards. You're applying to schools not knowing how much it's going to cost you. And so that's why if you're in this stage, we just encourage students to apply to different types of school, not only out-of-state schools, but in-state schools, private schools, public schools, and community college. Because at this point, you want to make sure that you have options. While you're waiting for your admissions letters, you know what's next is to await your financial aid award offers, and you want to have options. And if finances is one of the deciding factors, you want to make sure that you have options to choose from. You don't want to only apply to one type of school, and that is totally financially out of your range. And then by that point, it's too late to apply for admission into your other school of choice. So make sure that you have those options available for this particular time where most of you all should be, which is awaiting that financial aid award offer. And so once you receive your admissions letter and they put together your financial aid award letter, the most important piece before you say yes to a school is determining your bottom line. This is a step that a lot of students skip over. This is a step that I messed up on. And when I was, going through the college going process, it's because I didn't ask questions. I assumed I knew the answers. I assumed I knew how to do the math. So I did it all on my own. And so it makes no sense to ask questions and then answer them yourself, let me tell you. So the next step after you receive your financial aid award offer is to simply come up with that bottom line, what it is that you would have to pay out of pocket, and then how you're going to pay it out of pocket. And so here we have a sample financial aid award letter. I must say, from personal experience, I graduated from the University of Illinois at Chicago with my bachelor's degree. And I made the major mistake of taking a year's worth of financial aid and subtracting it from a semester worth of, semester's bill. So the mistake was I should have cut that financial aid in half and then subtracted that half from one semester bill. I went into the school thinking that I had more than enough financial aid. And unbeknownst to me, it was the complete opposite. And it's a normal mistake, I must say. And that's only because a lot of financial aid award offers are really complicated to read. So I want you all to know that it's not you, it's us. We talk financial aid lingo all day, every day. And sometimes that's translated on the financial aid award offer. It is your job to call us and make sure that we explain exactly what your bottom line is, walk through it with you, because we do know that a lot of these are complicated. And so again, it's not you. I don't want you to get discouraged when you look at them. I want you to give each school a call and have them explain what your bottom line is and discuss the different ways of attacking that bottom line. Okay, so this financial aid award sample is one that's I wish I had, because it's a little more user-friendly. And here you'll see that your awards are offered. And if anyone can point out a couple mistakes on this page, please include them in the chat. Based upon the description of the awards we just went over, what is incorrect here? If you could just put that in the chat, and then I'll go over that. But here we have all of the grants that this particular student will be receiving to attend this particular school. They're receiving the Western grant, the state grant, the Pell grant, and then the subsidized and unsubsidized, and those should read loans. As you can see, this school did a good job of breaking them up between fall and spring. So you know exactly how much you're receiving from each aid award each semester. After that, you'll take a look and there's a total there. That's the amount that you're receiving for the year. I made the mistake of taking that total, even though it didn't break it up for me, and subtracting it from one semester's bill. So where is work study in all of this? Again, we see some grants there and we see some loans there, but where is work study? Work study for some schools it's not going to be included on the financial aid award for the simple fact that it necessarily doesn't apply towards your tuition. And if it is on your award, we've noticed that some families make the mistake in subtracting it from their tuition and fees. And so they're coming up with erroneous numbers as to what their bottom line is, including monies that will never apply towards their tuition and fees. So for this particular award offer, it does not include it for that simple fact. We don't want to confuse any families. And so it is an option, but every school has a different way of awarding it and at different points of the year, as to not make cause any confusion. I'm sorry. So,
Dr. Smith, I'm sorry, can I interrupt for a moment? Do you want questions at the end or as you go along?
You can type them in the chat and then I'll answer them at the end.
Okay, great, thank you.
No problem. And so here at the bottom of this page, under estimate your out-of-pocket expenses, you'll find your tuition and fees, which is at $11,283, and that's for the year, and then your room and board. What you do not see are your books and supplies here. Now, some schools will include it under estimated costs, but not all schools. But it is a cost that you should consider because, of course, you do need books and supplies. And so a lot of schools do have estimates as to how much your books and supplies will be. And so you can take their estimates to determine how much you should budget for the year. So for right now, if you take a look at the tuition and fees, if you can take out your cell phones, or if you have calculators nearby, if you could just calculate the tuition and fees, room and board, and we're going to begin with that number. We're going to do a little math. So that's $11,283 plus $9,450, which brings us to a grand total of $20,733. And I'll just wait until I believe everyone has it up on their cell phone. Let adequate amount of time pass. So everyone should have the 20,733 figure calculated for their tuition and fees, room and board. Now from that amount, I would suggest that you begin by subtracting all of your gift aid. And so that would be your Western grant of $2,000, your state grant for $4,720, your Pell Grant for $5,380, and stop right there. So without any student loans, your total estimated cost of attendance for the year would be $8,633. That's without any student loans. It's important to keep in mind that the student loans are a part of the normal award package. You do have to accept them, but a lot of times students go on and accept them and keep moving before doing their calculations. It's easy to include loans without coming up with the bottom line without them. You just so may happen to have external scholarships that could take care of the $8,633, or you just so may have a family friend that would like to contribute towards your education, or you may want to enroll in a payment plan to pay the difference out of pocket. And so I think a lot of times students go into it and they determine their bottom line and they automatically consider the loan. So I would suggest that you first consider your bottom line without any student loans. And then if you do need to consider student loans, we typically like to begin with the subsidized loan, which is a need-based loan. It's a need-based loan because the lender does pay the interest while you're in school at least half time. The unsubsidized loan, which is not necessarily a bad loan, it is the opposite. It's a non-need-based loan and it accrues interest while you're in school. And so sometimes, depending on the circumstance, students do have to tap into both student loans. The most important piece, as we've heard in the previous presentation, is just being, not all debt is bad debt, it's just being aware of what you're borrowing. And I believe a lot of students are not aware of what they're borrowing. And what we see is that when students are not aware of what they're borrowing, they don't make plans to really pay them back, or they are shocked once they graduate that they have to pay them back. And so they weren't able to be intentional while they were in school, meaning that they weren't trying to obtain internships, networking, doing the necessary things so they can obtain the job that they will need to be able to pay back those loans. And so those that take the time to kind of do more research and before accepting the loans, typically they're a little bit more responsible in repaying them. They're more conscious about what's going on. Financial awareness goes a long way here. Also on this financial aid award package, which was done quite lovely, but just to make you aware, there is another loan option called the Parent Plus loan option. The Parent Plus loan option is an option if your parent would like to borrow a loan on your behalf. Now, the subsidized and unsubsidized loans are student loans, so those loans would be in the student's name. In the event that, so if we did borrow the student loans, the total that we come up with is the $3,133. Say you don't have that money's out of pocket, you don't have that available, or you don't have the scholarships to pay for it. The Parent Plus loan option is available if your parent wants to pay that on your behalf in a loan. For most award offers, this Parent Plus loan shows up as a dollar amount. So here it doesn't, but I get a lot of students who will say yes to a school because they believe their entire education is covered because they see a large amount when it says Parent Plus loan. However, the Parent Plus loan is contingent upon a credit check. So it's not guaranteed. There's an additional step. There's actually two. First, your parents have to agree to want to borrow it. And then two, if they do, they have to pass the credit check in order to borrow it. And so we do get some students who, they misread the financial aid award offer and they assume that they're receiving all of this money. And so they say yes to a school based upon the award. And so it's important to note that the Parent Plus loan money is not guaranteed money. It's presented on most award offers as an option. It's just to let you know that it's an option that's available. The amount that you typically will see there is typically more than what you need to attend the school. And that's because parents can borrow more than the student can because it is based upon a credit check. So let's go over some loans because I believe that it's really important to do so, especially when determining at this point which school to attend. It's the reason why you should apply to multiple schools so you have different options. And I believe one of the questions from the previous presentation was whether or not to borrow and what's good debt, what's bad debt, why are student loans considered good debt, and kind of determining how are student loans good debt. Well, when you apply to multiple schools, you may not have to borrow the full amount of loans at one school, but you may have to at the other. So you have some deciding there. Also, considering the career that you're interested in, of course, some have a larger return. And so you may be able to go out with borrow a little bit more loans. So there has to be some decision making there, and you have to start stretching to think about your life after college to determine what you're doing now. So I know it's kind of premature, but it's always best to think about how you would like to live your life after college before you even enter. Because at this stage, you're getting ready to say yes or no to a school by May 1st. And before you do that, they're going to send you an award offer where you have to determine how you're going to take care of the difference owed. And so to go over some of those loans, the subsidized loan versus the unsubsidized loan, which we kind of went into, those are both federal loans. Subsidized is a need-based loan. The unsubsidized loan is a non-need-based loan. Both are student loans, meaning that they will be in your name and you're responsible for repaying those student loans. Right now, the interest rate on the loans are 2.75% fixed rate. So that's for the interest rates of the loans for this particular year. Each year you have to complete a FAFSA. And so you'll be offered a new set of loans each year, and that amount will increase based upon your academic career. The reason being is because those loans are not based upon a credit check. So your credit is not being pulled when you're borrowing those loans. As the previous presenter explained, it's if you do not repay the loans, that's what's going to affect your credit. So that's why you have to make sure you understand what you're borrowing and how much you're borrowing before you say yes to a school. And so it's the repayment piece that gets some students in trouble. And so it's just determining the amount that you would like to borrow, but that amount does increase each year. So as a freshman, you'll be offered $5,500 for the first year, sophomore year, $6,500, junior and senior year, $7,500. That's the maximum. Whenever you see students borrow $100,000 for their undergraduate degree, that means they have tapped into what's called private student loans. It's also good to note that you can reduce or cancel your student loans while you're in school. So say that first year, you're making plans to borrow your federal subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and you were awarded a scholarship. You can contact your financial aid office and say, hey, can I reduce my loans? I received this scholarship because I know you all are continuously applying for scholarship before and during college. I know that's the plan, to continuously apply for scholarships. And as they are awarded, if you find that you don't need the loans, you can reduce or cancel them as long as it's within that time frame, within that academic year. And so continue to look for the scholarships, continue to seek out the assistance, and just know that you do have options. I do have families that'll say, hey, we will borrow the loans just in case as a safety net. And then if they find they don't need it, maybe their family member said, hey, I'll pay for your next semester, they can contact our office and we'll cancel those loans. So you're not locked into them for that during that time frame. And just talking about the interest with the unsubsidized loans, some students do choose to pay the interest while they're in school. It's pretty wise to do. With the 2.75% fixed interest rate on the unsubsidized loan, most students are able to do that while they're in school. That's around $55 in interest that first year on a $2,000 unsubsidized loan. And so some students pay that while they're in school. But if you don't, the principal, which is the loan itself, and then the interest, the repayment does not begin until 6 months after you graduate. So that's when repayment begins on both student loans. And again, those loans are in the student's name. Now, the student loans versus the Parent Plus loan, I get this question a lot. I get students who say, you know, I would just like to borrow the entire amount in my name. Unfortunately, you cannot. There's limits to how much you can borrow from the federal government in these type of loans. They put a limit because, again, it's not based upon credit history or work history, which is what typically lenders look at when determining if you are approved for a loan and how much. And so since they're going out on good faith that they believe you're going to pay it back, you can't borrow the entire cost of attendance in a student loan. Now, if all you owe after all of your other awards is $1,000, then you can definitely reduce your loans to $1,000, and that loan is enough to cover. But if it's not, and you need over $5,000, then you can't borrow more than that. And so the Parent Plus loan is a loan if the parent would like to borrow on your behalf. The parent loan would be in the parent's name in its entirety. The student is nowhere on the loan, and it cannot be transferred. And that's a common question as well. It cannot be transferred as well. And the parent loan, the interest rate on that loan this year is at a 5.30 fixed rate. Now, repayment for that loan is a little different. It does begin 60 days after the last disbursement for that academic year. So typically schools disperse once each semester. And so after the semester, the last semester of the academic year disbursement, 60 days after that, that's when repayment begins. Unless the parent indicates that they would like to begin repayment 6 months after the student graduates. Keeping in mind, interest is still accruing at that time. Now, some students do go right into graduate school after they graduate from their undergrad. Their federal loans will go automatically into deferment. And so you don't have to begin repayment if you go back to school and you are enrolled at least half time. And so at that point, it's just managing how much you plan on borrowing against what your monthly payments will be and different things like that. But repayment will not begin for your student loans, not the Parent Plus loan, but your student loans while you're in school, at least half time. If you decide to borrow your student loans, after you accept your student loans or you reduce them, because you can reduce them, the next step in that process the school will require is that you complete something called entrance counseling. I have to mention this requirement. It's not something that you have to worry about right now. Just know that it's coming if you do plan on borrowing the student loans. The entrance counseling is a required tool that students have to use, or a retired counseling piece that students have to complete, that basically educates them on the responsibility of borrowing the loans. Now, there's a lot of numbers that you would have to plug in, and you can plug in any numbers, but I would recommend that you really take it seriously. A lot of students just swift past it really quickly, just to get it over with. And it's important that you really take your time, because you're really looking at different repayment options at that time. If you really want to see what your repayment will look like after you graduate, I would highly recommend that you take your time and you complete that counseling piece, and you do so using actual numbers. Again, you can plug in any numbers that you may like. And so some students do start off with whatever they plan on borrowing for that first year, which is $55,000. But if you plan on being in school for 4 years and you borrow the maximum each year, that could be a total of $27,000. So I would highly recommend using that figure to look at what your repayment would look like. In addition to that, there's a lot of different tools that you can use on the Department of Ed's Who is the Lender's website to help you understand repayment, to help you look at repayment before you begin school, and that's at studentaid.gov under the complete aid process section. And then lastly, if your school has a financial fitness expert, I would recommend making an appointment with them. For the simple fact, it's always good to discuss your options as far as loans. Some students believe that, like I said, debt is all bad debt. And so I've seen students where they've only been short $1,000, but too afraid to borrow the unsubsidized loan. And it's like, hey, this tuition is $40,000. And if you're short $1,000, why not? And so they would rather just not attend the school. And so sometimes it's just explaining those fears to kind of get an answer, to kind of get some options from the experts. And so if your school has a financial fitness expert, I will make sure to schedule a meeting with them. If they do not, then I would give the lender a call and go over those different scenarios with them as well, your plans, so you can make the best decision for you and your financial future. And so again, the amount that the schools will always offer you is the maximum. It's the maximum that you can borrow. But if that is not enough, some students do attempt to borrow private student loans. Now, private student loans are very different from federal loans. All of the loan forgiveness programs that you may hear, or different income-based repayment plans, just repayment plan options in general, those are attached to the federal loans, not the private loans. The private loans, they can do what they want and they're all very different. And so students typically tap into those private student loans if they would like more loans in their name and not the Parent Plus loan. So that's typically the difference. The parent loan would be in the parent's name when they need additional funding. The private loans is when students say, hey, I need additional funding, but I can't do the Parent Plus loan, so I need more loans. And so they'll go out and apply for private student loans. Because the private student loans use your credit and work history to determine your eligibility, they, if you don't have those two, because you're high school seniors, they may require some type of a cosigner on the loan to help you get the loan. And so at this point, it's just determining if you want to borrow those private student loans and asking those questions to the lender about repayment. A lot of times with the federal loans, there's a lot of different repayment options depending on your circumstance, whether you're working, not working, making minimal money, planning to go back to school. There's many different options. With the private loans, however, you may not have so many options depending on what life throws you after you graduate. So those are some of the things that you should inquire about prior to borrowing the private loans. And not only inquire about, I would throw some scenarios. What if I'm not working? What if I'm at what Illinois considers poverty level in terms of my income bracket? Or what if I plan on going to graduate school? And so those are some important questions that you should ask, and some scenarios you should give them so you can better understand the terms and conditions of the loans. In other instances, subsidize your loans could be more than what you need. And we've seen this a lot too. Sometimes you don't need the full amount, but again, schools will offer the maximum. It's up to you to reduce them. Some students, they'll keep the maximum amount so that they can get a refund check and do whatever it is that they would like. It's highly recommended that you only borrow if you need to borrow what you need for school, because you do have to pay it back, and you have to begin to thinking about life after you graduate. And so again, I know it's a stretch right now to think about life after you graduate from college and you haven't even entered college, but it's very important to do so because you're starting to plan your life. You're starting to make your financial blueprint. And so you want to make sure that you are maximizing all of your options and for the most part, giving yourself that option to say yay or nay to a school if the financial piece is your deciding factor, making sure that that decision is the best one for you and your family. So throughout this entire process, I can't overemphasize the importance of asking questions. It's important that you ask questions, and you ask questions to every school that you're admitted into. And that's because financial aid, the way it may work at my school, it may work totally different at another school. And the only way you would know that is if you ask questions about what is the bottom line? How does this work? Since you have to complete your FAFSA each year, are these awards renewable? Am I guaranteed this scholarship each year? This is important because you have to plan for each year. And what I find is that when students begin to ask those questions, they can be a little bit more intentional with their journey. When you know that you're borrowing student loans, when you know that you have to pay this back, you know, you are a little bit more intentional about networking. You're going to college to not only obtain a degree, but you're getting some social capital there. You're getting relationships. You're getting the links to between you and a potential job. And so I think that when students really understand that they're using these loans to pay for school, that they're going about the college process a lot differently. They're not just going to school. They're not very mechanical. They're just not going to class and then, you know, going home. They're intentional about their relationship building, which is huge. And you would need that for life after you graduate. So be intentional about your plan if you are planning on borrowing those loans. I also recommend that you be very transparent, which is harder for some than others. Being transparent is very important because life throws us different circumstances. And sometimes if you expose those circumstances to a financial aid counselor, they potentially may be able to assist you. The FAFSA asks for your tax information from 2 years ago, right? There's a lot of things that could have changed within those 2 years. There could have been a reduction of income. There could have been a loss of job. There could be deaths. There could be different things like that. But since we're going off of 2 years ago, we would never known that unless you come into our office and you tell us what's going on, what is your real financial snapshot, what is really going on. We could possibly assist you in awarding additional funding based upon that circumstance. And so I always advise students that they should be transparent, not only with their circumstance, but also with their fears. Like I said, if you're scared of borrowing the loans and maybe you only need $2,000 worth of loans, exposing that fear is going to open up the conversation for a financial aid counselor to say, okay, well, if you borrow this amount, this is potentially what your repayment would be. It opens up the doors for more conversation when you're a little more transparent in the process. And so I know a lot of times we have our main high school counselors, we have our parents and different things like that, but I highly encourage you to build those relationships with financial aid counselors, with your professors, with different stakeholders on campus, because it opens you up to more possibilities in more ways than one. And so I just highly recommend that you ask questions and you be intentional, especially if you plan on borrowing student loans so that you can begin to plan your life after college. That's the end of my presentation. And I believe I have some questions.
You do. One of the very first questions, one of the students wanted clarity on how did you mistake your overall awarding application in the very beginning of your college career at USC?
Sure. So my award didn't look like that one. So it gave me just the yearly amount. And so when you register for classes, you can only register one semester at a time. And so I was looking at a semester bill, but a yearly amount for an award. And so I was doing the math. I got to the point where a lot of you are, where you're determining the bottom line. And I said, oh, I have more than enough. And at that time, you could begin school without your bill being paid. You can actually go a full year without your bill being paid. I don't think you can now there, but you could at that time when I was in school. And so I made that mistake. And as I assist other students with coming up with their bottom line, they're making the same mistakes. And so that's why I said that it's important that you call schools and you ask for assistance with the bottom line, or even double check your numbers, because it is a common mistake. Either that, or students are including their work study into their calculations, or they're including that Parent Plus loan in their calculations when determining which school to attend. And again, it's not you, it's the school, it's us.
Okay. And regarding the Parent Plus loan, can you assume your parents' loan later in life if you wanted to?
No, it is not transferable. I have seen families become very creative. I've seen parents bring in a notary and they sign off, but you know that won't hold too much. You're responsible. You are the borrower, the parent is. So no, you cannot transfer that loan at all to the student. That's more like an internal agreement between families.
Okay. And also, can you share some information on student loan forgiveness?
Yeah. So student loan forgiveness, typically you have to work in certain sectors, and typically those are like for our lawyers, if you're a public defender. Teachers have programs, nursing students, nurses have programs. Typically, if you're in some type of public service. I do see some individuals that work for non-for-profits that qualify, but also see some that work for non-for-profits that don't. It all depends on who's paying you out of which bucket. And so if you're doing something that is benefiting the public, more than likely you may qualify for public loan forgiveness. And how it works is you have to make 10 years of on-time payments, and the back end is forgiven. And so I know our law students, they take advantage of that a lot, because a lot of them come out and they are public defenders. And so a lot of them have no problem borrowing $100,000 worth of loans, because if their monthly payments are based upon their income, because they've enrolled in what's called an income-based repayment plan, they can still live and make on-time payments towards their loans. And then if after 10 years, they've only paid $10,000 out of their $200,000 that they borrowed, then the $190,000 is forgiven. That tax year is going to be a mess, but because that'll be on their taxes. But outside of that, the back end would be forgiven.
Okay. And also regarding deferring the loan, do they have to actively defer their loans while in school, or is it just understood during their college career?
Yeah, it's automatic. Sure, it's automatic. When you enroll at least half-time, something called the National Student Clearinghouse is updated, and that's what schools check to make, that's what lenders check to make sure you're enrolled at least half-time. Now, I will recommend that you do always double check with your lender. I would not leave everything is ran by systems now. And so I would not leave that up to the school. I would make sure to give my lender a call, or as previously noted, check your credit score, your credit report, just making sure that everything is where it needs to be, because schools make mistakes, systems are down, reporting times sometimes are off. There's only a few times that schools report. So by the time you enroll, sometimes it may catch the next cycle, but in between time, you may not be in deferment. And so it's always just best to communicate with the lender to make sure that everyone is on one accord. But the short answer, no, there's nothing you have to do. Schools automatically update it, but I think it's best practice if you would just make sure that you stay on top of your loans by communicating with the lender.
Also, what advice would you give to students about going into debt because they want their first choice regarding school rather than looking into more affordable options?
Your dream school could become a nightmare in a matter of minutes. And to make it real for you, like I said, it's very hard when you're in high school because you're not attempting to buy a house. You're not attempting to get a car. You're not attempting, maybe now with social media, everybody's going on elaborate vacations. You may not be, but you will want to, you know, or if you want to start a family, you want to make sure that your family is set up to where if you need to move. Right now, it's harder to rent than it is to buy. It's hard to, because it's hard to evict and go through that process. So credit and different things like that is greatly affected if you default on those loans. But as previously mentioned, your debt to income ratio will affect your credit. So if you're borrowing all these loans to attend a dream school, and I'm not sure what your end goal is either. So you have to take that into consideration too. I'm not, but for me, I know I went on and I refused to get my master's without it getting paid for. And I'm currently in a doc program and I refused that without it getting paid for. But that's because I know I'm in education. It didn't make sense for me to continue, and I would have to borrow these loans. So what that meant is I just had to practice patience, and I had to make some hard decisions because I knew what type of life I wanted to live. And so I know it may be hard, but you do have to think about those end goals. Again, I don't know the different variables. I'm not sure what the career you're interested in going in, if that just makes sense, or if you're able to do that. But I wouldn't recommend it.
Can you talk about the pros and cons of consolidation of loans with a private lender?
Yeah, so the difference, because when students are choosing between a private loan and federal loans, they almost always just look at the interest rates, but you really have to look at that repayment piece. Because life just can happen, and I've just seen it. I see it all the time. Life can throw you so many curveballs. And one thing with the federal loans, there are a lot of different repayment options. And with with private loans, there typically are not. And I know 9 times out of 10, the private loans have the variable interest rates. And so they can fluctuate. And the federal student loans typically have fixed interest rates. So you know what you're paying. And so you can do a little more financial planning that way. But most financial advisors would not advise you to consolidate your federal loans into private.
I don't see any more questions in the chat. If you have anything that you would like to ask, please post them here. I also want to make sure that you all see that we did place the survey in the chat. So please click on the link and take the survey. We do appreciate your feedback. Do we have any more questions for Mrs. Smith?
I also would like just to add, I do see some students choosing to go to community college and not going to like a 4-year based upon price. Again, asking questions is very important, especially making big decisions like that, especially if you were eligible for a scholarship. A lot of those scholarships, you will not be eligible for them as transfer students. So it's important that you weigh your options out before making it. I just hear that constantly, especially during the pandemic, where students are saying, hey, spend your first year, it's much cheaper at community college instead of going into a 4-year program. But a lot of these experts are not explaining that if you were eligible for a scholarship, and if that was a sizable amount of a scholarship, you may not be eligible once you then enter as a transfer student. So it's just making sure that you do the math accurately and that you talk to both parties, the community college, and you also talk to the 4-year school, just to make sure that that the decision you're making is the best for you. There's a lot of people getting information from everywhere, and it may not be what's best for you. So you have to make sure that you call and you ask and you get personalized, individualized answers.
Regarding debt forgiveness for loans, if a person was to open their own nonprofit, would that qualify them for loan forgiveness?
Oh, and you work there full time, I wouldn't see why not. If who's paying you, I mean, that's what the federal government is interested in, who's paying you. And if that's considered a not-for-profit, then you could. I would call and double check. I haven't had that question, so I have to look more into it.
Are parents required to input their financial aid information on the FAFSA for students over 21?
Yes. There's a list of questions on the FAFSA, and they're called dependency questions. And I know a lot of we go through the FAFSA, so we kind of miss the heading, but the purpose of those questions is to determine if the student is an independent or dependent student. So if you can't answer yes to at least one of those and provide documentation to back it if the school asks, then you're considered a dependent student and your parents' information is required on the FAFSA.
Okay. When seeking a graduate level or a doctoral degree, what if the loan doesn't cover all living expenses and tuition, and it's best not to work during the program? I guess they want advice on what should they do.
That's rare. I mean, when you're a graduate, student, you'll be offered the federal direct unsubsidized loan, which is $20,500 for the year. That's the maximum in that type of loan. But then students typically supplement it with the graduate plus loan. And typically that's the loan that students tap into to cover whatever the unsub doesn't cover for tuition and what they need for living. The only difference is the grad plus is contingent upon a credit check. So if your credit isn't up to par, you may not be eligible for it, and the interest rate is slightly higher. So opposed to it being 4.3% fixed, it's 5.3% fixed. So it's typically 1% higher than the unsubsidized loan for a graduate student, but typically there are enough loans to cover the graduate program. I just know for some programs, they don't put it out there like that, but I do, will it cover housing in my car note? So when it comes to financial aid is attached to educational expenses. And so what your school deems an educational expense, that cost of attendance varies, right? The government gives us this broad reg, and then we get to develop our best practices. And so educational expenses, yes. But however, I just want to put a disclaimer. I do know there are some students who quit jobs, who lose their jobs and their mortgage is like $2,700 or $2,200. Schools can put a cap on how much you can borrow to cover that expense. So I can't say yes. They don't allow students to borrow to where they can live lavishly. If I can put it that way. So yes and no. I would ask, what's the cost of attendance? How much will you all allow me to borrow to cover these things? And if your cost of attendance exceeds that amount, then I would ask for an appeal, but it has to be related to education, and cars typically are not. But the housing, yes, but there's limits.
We have time for just one more question.
Someone said they did a fellowship. Yeah, sometimes schools are tricky. Sometimes you do have to apply for the graduate program before they kind of let you know what gift or what type of fellowships and assistantships and things like that are available sometimes. So sometimes you have to just apply and then see what's available before deciding to go into the school, if that's one of your deciding factors. But every school is different.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
No problem.
Okay, you can stop sharing your screen now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on behalf of, well, first of all, I would like to say that this was such an awesome and informative event. And on behalf of Target 3, Building Your Economic Legacy, Chair Debbie Williams, and myself, Co-Chair Lakeisha Dancy, and #CAP, Chair Risa Lanier, and Co-Chair Marissa Spite, we would like to thank both of the presenters today, Dr. Nkansa and Mrs. Smith, for an amazing presentation. And we would like to thank all of you for sharing your day with us today. And we will have some closing remarks via video from our Vice President, Tasha Smith. But prior to that video, we would like for all of the #CAP students to remain after the remarks so that Mrs. Lanier can give them a few items that she wants to speak to them about. So thank you all, and we appreciate you attending today.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tasha Smith, Vice President of Chi Omega Omega Chapter and the Imani Pearls Community Development Foundation. On behalf of the Program Target Committee Chairman and the entire committee, we want to thank all of the participants for joining this impactful event. We truly hope that you are empowered by attending, and we appreciate your continued support of Chi Omega Omega Chapter and the Imani Pearls Community Development Foundation programs. As we continue to power up with excellence, one of our goals is to leverage our programs by expanding our reach and the communities we serve, and hope you'll be right there with us. For more information on future programs and events, please visit our website at chiomegaomega.org. Thank you once again for attending.
Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Risa Lanier. I'm the chairman of #CAP. Thank you all for attending. And again, #CAP students, stick around. I do have a couple of housekeeping or a couple of announcements that I'd like to share with all of you. So as people are leaving, I will go ahead and share my screen so that we can get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, the program today was phenomenal, and I know that you all received a wealth of information that you may want to go back and review again. This entire presentation will be available on our YouTube channel, Chi Omega Omega. Again, that's Chi Omega Omega. Check out our YouTube channel for this presentation and any of our past programs as well, including our March 31st program that we did on around mental health and wellness. It was a journaling program. So check out our journaling video as well if you didn't have the opportunity to attend that workshop. So again, our YouTube channel at Chi Omega Omega to look at and review today's presentation, and bring a friend, because this information, again, it was a wealth of information that I wish I had when I was going through college. So bring a friend, check out our channel, and take advantage of all of the information that has been given to you today. So one of the things that we do want to announce to all of our seniors, and I know that we have, I'm sorry, let me go back. We have several students that are actually out today because they are preparing for the SAT exam. And so they're taking their prep classes, and that SAT testing actually starts either at the end of April or the beginning of May. So we wish all of our students success who are taking those exams. However, I know that we have a couple of seniors here, and we want to let you know about the #CAP scholarships that are launching on April 15th, 2021. #CAP will be offering 3 $1,000 scholarships to #CAP seniors. You have to be a member of #CAP, meaning that you participated in our programming. We've received a completed application from you, and you are considered a part of the program to be eligible for the #CAP scholarships. There will also be other scholarships offered from the Imani Pearls Community Development Foundation that we will give you, send you the information on as well. But I want to focus on these 3 scholarships that are available for our #CAP students. So the first one is called the #CAP scholarship. It's a $1,000 one-time award. You must have a 2.0 or higher cumulative unweighted GPA, and you must have participated in a minimum of 3 #CAP programs during the 2020-2021 school year. So this past school year, you must have participated in at least 3 of our Saturday workshops. The requirements, we do require your most recent unofficial transcript, which you should have because you've been sending them out to your schools that you're applying to, as well as scholarships. We do require a letter of recommendation from a teacher or a counselor, an acceptance letter or other proof of enrollment to a college or a university on official letterhead of that college or university. And there is a requirement, there is an essay requirement. All of this information will be included in the scholarship package along with other pertinent information as it relates to that scholarship. But overall, this is a $1,000 one-time award to a #CAP participant who has participated in a minimum of 3 of our programs with a 2.0 or higher cumulative unweighted GPA. So that is the first scholarship. The second scholarship is the #CAP Medical Major Scholarship. This is a scholarship for a student who is entering the medical field or intending on entering the medical field. Similar to the other scholarship, it's a $1,000 one-time award. Same GPA requirements, 2.0 or higher. Same participation requirements for #CAP. 3 or more programs during this school year, 2020-2021. And again, the requirements are the same but when you get to the essay, there will be a different essay question that is related to a medical major. And so again, this scholarship is only available for those students who have an interest in and are entering and planning to enter a career in the medical field, whether it's a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, a doctor or a nurse, or anything in the medical field, a pharmacist, anything in the medical field. And then our third scholarship is the #CAP Community Service Scholarship, which will be awarded based upon your community service. So there is an emphasis on community service. Again, $1,000 one-time award, same GPA requirements, same requirements for participation in our programs, and everything else under the requirements are the same. Again, when you get to the typed essay, that is where you will have to expand upon and provide information about the community service that you have participated in and the specific impact that your participation has had on the community that you served. So this scholarship, which is sponsored by Circle K, is specifically for community service. The previous scholarship, the Major Medical Scholarship, is a scholarship that is sponsored by Dr. Muriel Lee, and that is for students entering into the medical field. And again, our first scholarship is a general scholarship where the requirements are, where there are no specific requirements such as community service or a specific major or a specific career interest, okay? So those are the 3 scholarships that will be launching on April 15th. The deadline for these scholarships, May 10th, 2021 at 11:59 p.m. We must have received your completed application and all of the materials that are to accompany your particular application. And so the question is, how do I get to these scholarships? What are the links? Those will be sent out directly to all of our #CAP students on May 15th, on the day the scholarship opens up. Please check your email for a link to those scholarships, and included in the body of information will be where you return your scholarships, where that information and what website that information should be uploaded to, or what email address it should be uploaded to. I will pause here for any questions concerning our scholarships. Courtney.
Hi, is it possible to apply to more than one?
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. And then we do want to let you know about our last 2 events for this school year. #CAP students, we are so proud of you, and we were so proud and so honored to be a part of your school year journey, whether you are a sophomore, a freshman, a junior, or our graduating seniors. Graduating seniors, we have heard about your offers that are coming in. We've heard from a couple of you about the decisions that you've made. Don't let the cat out of the bag, because in May, we will have our Decision Day program where we will celebrate our seniors and we'll learn from our seniors about the decisions that they've made. So that's Saturday, that's the second Saturday in May, on May 8th at 10 a.m. And we are partnering with another target from Chi Omega Omega, the Imani Pearls Community Development Foundation. We are partnering with HBCU for Life. And on that day, we will not only be celebrating our students, celebrating our seniors and their decisions, but we will also present to you a college panel that will include current students who are attending PWI schools, predominantly white institutions, as well as HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. We will present that panel to our students, and you have the opportunity to ask as many questions as you need in order to help yourselves prepare for the transition from high school to college. And we have a couple of other exciting and surprises for you on Decision Day. So that's Saturday, May 8th, second Saturday in May at 10 a.m. Please look for communications regarding Decision Day. And then in June, we will be celebrating, it's a graduation celebration, celebrating our seniors with a graduation celebration and a trunk party. Again, we are partnering with HBCU for Life to bring you this program, as well as Target for the Arts to bring you this particular program. And I won't let the cat out of the bag. We have a lot of exciting things planned for our graduating seniors and our transitioning and rising seniors as well. So those are 2 upcoming programs, and that is how we will end the year with you. But for those of you who are freshmen, who are sophomore, who are juniors, I want you to remember and to keep in mind that we will be back in the fall with new programming, and we do want you to continue your high school journey with #CAP so that we can continue to assist you in your college admissions process. So I'll pause here for any questions. If you have not already done so, please make sure that you are filling out the survey that was linked in the chat. We do have a question from our Vice President. Is that a question or a hand clap? I'm not sure. From our Vice President, Ms. Smith.
That's a definite hand clap. I am excited. This is a lot of good information. So I'm hoping that our #CAP students are soaking up all of this information. We have your backs. We want you to excel in your education. And so please ask us questions. We will point you in the right direction. We have a plethora of resources for you. Please don't be afraid to ask. Email, text, send up a smoke screen. We're here for you.
Absolutely. And seniors, I do want to caution you now, when you come in on decision day, make sure that you are dressed appropriately, because we are going to ask for decision day and for graduation. We're going to ask you to put your cameras on, no matter what grade level you are. We want your cameras on, get glammed up, make sure you are representing, your schools, the schools that you are going to, or whatever have you, or your current high schools, because it will be recorded. Our last 2 events will be recorded. Those recordings will be placed on our YouTube channel, as well as the #CAP website on Chi Omega Omega, as well as Imani Pearls Community Development Foundation, because we want to brag on you. You all have done so much work. It's been so hard, so much anxiety, and so much preparation into it, and you are almost there. And we just want to celebrate with you. We are so proud of you. And again, so honored to be a part of this, part of your journey. If you wish to get in touch with us, please email us at CAP, no, not the @ here, I'll put it in the chat. That's a better way to do it. I'll drop in our email address. So if you need to get a hold of anybody, you can email us at cap@ipcdf.org. This is the email address that you receive all your communications from us. And then in turn, if you need to communicate with us, send us in communication at cap@ipcdf.org, and we can then point you in the right direction, answer your questions, give you additional resources, whatever it is that you need, we are here for you. Okay. All right, it is 12:08. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us, and we look forward to celebrating with you in the upcoming months. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Thank you for this.
Thank you.